Hey guys, it's Zerx What If, and today we're coming back with part 5 of What If Yuji Was Like Yoriichi. I want to thank all of you for 450 subscribers. Again, the support is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm thankful. I've gotten this lucky with just 4 videos, and I couldn't be more grateful. I also seen a lot of people saying that they wanted me to branch out and do other kinds of anime what ifs. Again, like I said in one of my posts earlier, I'm willing to do research on anything. Majority of the what if ideas that you guys are recommending me, I'm pretty sure I could do them. It would just take me some time. And of course, I'm working on the Garo what if right now, and after that, I will be working on the All for One what if. But after that, I'm pretty sure I'll just put up polls every now and then just to see what you guys would like me to do. But thank you again for all of the support. All of you are goats. But without further ado, let's get right into this. Yuji would be staring at the sky, contemplating what had happened. He would be confused, thinking about Kokoshibo's last words and what he meant. He told Yuji that the mark on his forehead would curse him, and Yuji would ponder on that thought, trying to figure out what he meant. This is when Yuji would smack himself in the face and tell him that he needs to get it together. Yuji would then run back down into the station to where Kenjaku and Choso were at. Scanning the situation, he would be shocked, seeing Eso dead on the floor, with Choso in a near-death state next to him. He would rush over to Choso, trying to ask him where Kenjaku had gone, but Choso couldn't answer. He was out cold. Yuji would only get angrier, seeing as more people were just dying around him. Kenjaku was nowhere to be seen, and the prison room was also gone. He knew he had to focus on his fight with Kokoshibo, seeing as they were the stronger of the two. But he didn't know that Kenjaku was going to overwhelmingly beat both Choso and Eso here. Yuji would then begin to pray for Eso, hoping that he gets reincarnated into a better life. Yuji would proceed to pick up Choso and decide that he was going to take him to Shoko. Yuji would rush over as fast as he could, seeing that Choso was on death's door. Shoko would ask him who this guy is, with Yuji telling her not to worry and that he was on their side, just asking her to heal him. He would tell Shoko that once this guy wakes up, he would explain everything to them. Yuji would then ask Shoko how the situation was out there. She would tell him that Megumi had came by a while ago. He had delivered Ino to her. However, he said he was going to check on the other teams, but he had not responded or come back yet. Yuji would tell Shoko that he would go out and look for Megumi. She would tell Yuji to be safe. Yuji would nod, and he would sprint away, going to go look for Megumi or any other Jujutsu sorcerers. Along the way, Yuji would clean up any transfigured humans that he would see along the way. With this many transfigured humans around, Mahito must still be in the picture. This is when Yuji would then hear a loud crash in the area. He would go to investigate, only to be horrified by what he was seeing. He would have found everybody that he was looking for. However, he would not like the way that he had found them. He would have seen Nanami on the floor, with the top part of his body blown off. Maki would have been on the floor, seemingly dead. The Zenin head would have been mutated beyond recognition. Panda would just be a head on the floor. Megumi would be there alive. However, he would simply be beaten up as he couldn't do anything to Mahito, as he wasn't able to strike a part of his soul. As Yuji would scan around, he would look for Nobara, but he couldn't see her. This is when Mahito would appear on a building behind Yuji, screaming his name. He would be holding Nobara by the neck. He would tell Yuji that it was so boring without him, saying that none of these people actually offered him a real challenge. So he was just toying with them until Yuji got there. But now that Yuji was here, he doesn't have any need for any of them. He would then look at Yuji and say, this one was just for him. He would then use his technique on Nobara and throw her at Yuji. As Yuji would catch her, he would ask her if she was okay. She would simply tell Yuji that she believes she lived a proper life and that she's okay with everything that she's done up till now. Just then, the entire right side of Nobara's face would explode right in front of Yuji. Mahito, seeing this, would begin laughing. Yuji, seeing what Mahito had done to Nobara, would finally lose it. There have been so many deaths, so many innocent people dying because of Mahito, and that ends right here and right now. Mahito would then begin to feel a wave of heat emanating off Yuji. Yuji would lock eyes with Mahito and ask him, what do you find so entertaining? What's so amusing about this? What do you take life for exactly? Why can't you understand? So many innocent people have died because of you, so I'm going to do what I should have done all that time ago. Mahito would laugh at Yuji, telling him that he doesn't care about anything he's saying. Yuji would tell him that he should. Before Mahito could even get another breath in, Yuji would be in front of him. Mahito would smile, knowing that he had to take this attack head on. Yuji would strike him in the chest. This attack would send Mahito flying. Mahito knew that he couldn't beat Yuji in a head-to-head battle. Mahito noting that one attack had took away 25% of his soul. Mahito knew he had to get stronger from his first encounter with Yuji. However, he still wasn't strong enough, and he knew that himself. Anything that he could do, he would prevent Yuji from hitting him at all. He promised that he would kill Itadori Yuji right here and now, with Yuji promising the same thing. As Yuji would rush in, attempting to finish off Mahito as fast as he could, Mahito was already plotting something. Mahito, having a lot more free time, was able to gather a lot more transfigured humans. Even though Yuji had taken out majority of his transfigured humans that were roaming the streets, he still had an abundant number of transfigured humans at his disposal. As Yuji would close in on Mahito, he would already be spitting out an abundant amount of transfigured humans. He would send them towards Yuji, trying to distract him, knowing that he couldn't take Yuji on in hand-to-hand combat. Mahito would simply try to play hit-and-run tactics, since it was the only way he could possibly beat Yuji. Yuji would easily disperse of the transfigured humans, locking back in on Mahito. Mahito would scream to Yuji, "Don't you know that you're killing humans as well?" Trying to get into Yuji's head. "Every single one of the transfigured humans you kill is a human life that you're taking. Are you okay with that?" Yuji would reply, "I'm simply giving them the proper death that they deserve." Mahito, kissing his teeth, would be annoyed, calling Yuji boring, as he would generate another wave of transfigured humans, this one being even bigger than the last one he sent. He wanted to use the wave of transfigured humans to try to sneak around Yuji and attack him without him noticing. Although the transfigured humans weren't strong in any way, there was just too many of them, and Yuji was getting annoyed. He just couldn't track Mahito's cursed energy through the abundance of cursed energy that was around him. Mahito, sneaking through the crowd of transfigured humans, would begin sprinting straight towards Yuji. Getting behind him, Yuji would feel the sudden spike of cursed energy and turn around. But as he turned around, the attack would already be in front of his face. He would crack Yuji in the jaw, landing a black flash. This would actually hurt Yuji, causing him to be launched back a little bit, with Mahito ducking back into the crowd of transfigured humans, with him generating more transfigured humans to cover his tracks. Mahito would say in the crowd, "Isn't this exhilarating, Yuji?" Yuji, being in the middle of all the transfigured humans, think to himself, how many lives has he taken for him to have this many transfigured humans? None of these people deserve this. This is when Yuji would close his eyes. Yuji would say, "Enough, I'm done." Mahito would think Yuji was giving up, but it was quite the opposite, as Mahito would try to rush in and get another attack off on Yuji. Yuji would simply duck under his attack, countering the attack with a kick of his own, sending Mahito back into his wave of transfigured humans. Mahito would laugh again, saying that he's only taken 2 attacks by Yuji, but his soul wouldn't be able to take much more. Mahito would then decide he might need to go for a gamble. He knows that opening a domain is risky because Sukuna is still inside of Yuji. He needs to land another black flash on Yuji, but he would need to create the perfect opening. Even though it had seemed as if Yuji had gotten used to his hit-and-run tactics already, he needed to come up with something. Mahito would then decide to take back some of his transfigured humans, leaving enough to where he could still duck and dodge in. He would combine a large portion of transfigured humans together, using his polymorphic soul isomer. He would send 3 of them at Yuji. All 3 of them would lunge at Yuji, with Yuji dodging out of the way. Yuji would be about to launch another attack, but they were faster than he thought they were. The transfigured human would move out of the way, going on a punch on Yuji, but he would block it, noticing that these transfigured humans were stronger than the others. As another transfigured human would go in for an attack on Yuji, Mahito would then come out of cover, lunging straight at Yuji. Mahito, finding another opening, would land another black flash onto Yuji's side. Yuji was getting pissed off. He knew that he could beat Mahito in hand-to-hand combat. However, Mahito was playing smart, not allowing himself to get hit, ducking into the crowd of his transfigured humans, and sending other transfigured humans at him. This is when Mahito would yell from in the middle of the crowd, "It's time we get this show on the road, Itadori. You have finally helped me reach my next stage of evolution, and with this I will kill you." Mahito, finding the true essence of his soul, would begin to transform. He would thank Yuji, telling him that he's grateful for letting him reach this next stage in evolution. With the other polymorphic transfigured humans still there, Mahito would launch in for another attack with them. Mahito would send a punch towards Yuji, with Yuji blocking the initial attack. Mahito would then use his tail to try to strike Yuji. However, Yuji would simply stomp on his tail, as one of the polymorphic transfigured humans would try to attack Yuji from the back. He would flip Mahito over him, making the transfigured human attack Mahito. As Mahito would break free from Yuji's grasp, he would extend his arm blades, trying to cut Yuji. Yuji, seeing the attack, would simply weave out of the way, grabbing Mahito by the arm pulling him forward and striking him in the chest. Even though Mahito's body had gotten extremely tough, every punch from Yuji would crack his armor. Mahito thought if he had evolved, he may have stood a chance against Yuji, but Yuji was showing him that evolution did not matter at all. He would begin to pummel Mahito, each punch carrying more weight than the last. Yuji would then tell Mahito that he can land all the black flashes in the world. He could gain as many evolutions as he wanted. However, it wouldn't change the fact that he was going to die here today. Mahito would try to escape back into his crowd of transfigured humans. However, Yuji would grab onto Mahito's tail, pulling him back, comboing Mahito again. Mahito would try to send the polymorphic transfigured humans at Yuji. Yuji would simply dodge them, not paying them any mind, as they weren't really a problem for him. He just wanted to kill Mahito. Mahito would try to retaliate, trying to hit Yuji in any way possible, but it was clear that Yuji had the advantage in hand-to-hand combat. Mahito couldn't do anything. Mahito would think to himself, saying he has to get away somehow. Yuji would throw a punch. Mahito would then deactivate his instant spirit body, ducking underneath the attack, diving back into his crowd of transfigured humans. He would take all of them back, Yuji confused on what he was trying to do. Mahito knows that the regular polymorphic transfigured humans would not be able to harm Yuji, so he needs to make something better. He would push out as much cursed energy as he could, forcing all of the souls to merge together. Combining his instant spirit body with the polymorphic soul isomer, he would have created a new type of transfigured human. By pumping out as much cursed energy as he could into the transfigured human, not only was it insanely strong, but because he fused his instant spirit body onto the transfigured human, it also had incredible durability. Just then, Mahito would also reactivate his own instant spirit body. He would tell Yuji that he wasn't done yet. This was a fight to the death, and it wasn't going to be him. Yuji would simply be staring at Mahito with cold, dead eyes. As the two would rush in to attack Yuji, they would throw an attack. The transfigured human would throw a low kick on Yuji, while Mahito would throw in an overhead punch. Yuji would slip in between both attacks, kicking the transfigured human and launching himself off of it. He would note that it was as if there were two Mahitos on the field, but this wouldn't stop him from killing Mahito. Mahito and the other transfigured human would close in on Yuji, both of them seemingly in sync. They would throw hit after hit at Yuji, with Yuji trading blows with both of them. Even though there were two of them, Yuji still had the advantage in hand-to-hand combat. Mahito was doing slightly better than before, being able to land some hits, but it still wasn't enough. This is when Yuji would say he was finishing this. He would grab Mahito by the tail and toss him away. Turning around, Yuji would activate his technique, throwing the palm strike straight towards the transfigured human's chest. It would land, along with black sparks. This one attack from Yuji would absolutely demolish the transfigured human, killing it in that one moment. Mahito landing would be absolutely shocked. He put everything into that, and all it took was one black flash from Yuji. Mahito would begin to laugh, calling Yuji a freak, with Yuji telling Mahito that he dies right here, right now. He'd rush in on Mahito, going in with the right hand, striking Mahito in the face, grabbing his head, and then throwing a knee. The knee would crack Mahito's face mask off. Mahito would curse, screaming at Yuji. However, Yuji wasn't done. He would begin to absolutely pummel Mahito, not giving him any type of breathing room, each strike being harder and hotter than the last. By the end of Yuji's combo, Mahito's armor was completely broken, and Mahito laid there an absolute mess on the floor. As Mahito would be on the floor, Yuji would ask him again, "What is the value of life to you? What do you take life for exactly? You've killed so many people." Mahito would then cut him off, telling him that he doesn't care. He killed because he was a curse. Yuji telling him, "Then die as you lived." Just as Yuji was about to land the finishing strike on Mahito, a wave of curse spirits would rush in over Yuji, pushing him far back away from Mahito. This is when Kenjaku would come into the picture, standing over Mahito. Yuji would already be about to close in on Kenjaku. This is when a curse below Yuji would form, making him fall over. This is when Kenjaku would smile and say that he was sad that Yuji didn't want to bond with him. Yuji would tell him to shut up, trying to rush back in at Kenjaku. Just then, a wave of ice would stop Yuji dead in his tracks, another sorcerer coming into the fray, this being Urarame. In front of Yuji, there were two incredibly strong curse users. Without knowing anything about either of them, he would hold himself, trying to assess the situation. Mahito would get up off the floor and brush himself, telling Yuji that he's failed to kill him once again. Just then, Kenjaku would use cursed spirit manipulation on Mahito, Yuji being shocked because he thought they were on the same team. Just then, Kenjaku would then begin to reveal his technique to Yuji, telling him about his cursed spirit manipulation. As Mahito would get turned into an orb, he would begin to talk to Yuji about his plan. Yuji would tell him that all of it is stupid, telling him that he doesn't even know if cursed users themselves will indiscriminately attack people, telling him that people aren't evil by nature. With Kenjaku laughing, telling Yuji that he has a good heart, however, it simply isn't realistic. Just then, he would swallow the orb he had put Mahito into. Yuji would then say that he had talked enough and would rush back in to attack. This is when Kenjaku would use his maximum technique, using Uzumaki on Yuji. This is when the Kyoto High School of Jujutsu Sorcerers would enter the picture, Todo using his ability to move Yuji out of the way, as they would attempt to fight both the curse users. Urarame themselves would stop the Kyoto High School before they even got the chance to do anything. Kenjaku then explains to Yuji that he believes he must bring forth chaos he cannot control in order to exceed the bounds of cursed energy. While telling Yuji this, he would activate idle transfiguration, affecting the souls of everyone he marked over the years in preparation for this day. He would then tell Yuji that two types of non-sorcerers were marked, one being who are people who ingested cursed objects in the similar fashion that Yuji did, or the second type, that are peoples whose brains were meant to be like non-sorcerers, but by using idle transfiguration, it would allow their brains to be adjusted for Jujutsu. He would then tell Yuji that he plans to make everyone he's marked fight one another in order to deepen their understanding of cursed energy. He would then summon a large amount of cursed spirits to mask his escape, with everything going according to his plan. He would hold the prison room out in front of Yuji and tell Sukuna that the golden age of Jujutsu is upon them once again, and the Heian era will return. Yuji would attempt to rush in and grab the prison realm, but this is when another sorcerer would appear and stop him. She would tell him that he shouldn't rush in indiscriminately without knowing what's to come, this being Yuki. Yuji would ask her who she was and if she was working with Kenjaku. She would freak out, explaining to Yuji who she is, telling him that it's good to be on guard, but she's not an enemy. As the Shibuya incident would come to a close, the same rules that were instated in canon would also be instated here. With Gojo Satoru being sealed, Yuji's execution would have resumed, with the higher-ups appointing Yuta Okkotsu as his executioner. Some time would pass, with Yuji being in hiding with Yuki. She would ask Yuji what he wanted to do. She would apologize for not making a move sooner, saying that she was just keeping an eye on things. Yuji would stay silent and ask if he could have some alone time. As Yuji would sit alone on a stairwell, he would ponder in his head, thinking about what he could have done differently. How no matter how strong he gets, it would only seem like he was always a step behind. This is when Choso would appear behind him, asking Yuji if he was okay. Yuji would confide in Choso. He would tell him that even though he's strong, even though he can take out as many special grade curses as he wants, he still feels weak. Choso would tell Yuji that he shouldn't worry about things like that. He's still very young. He would tell Yuji that he should try to go back to Jujutsu High and explain everything to the higher-ups. Yuji would just tell him that even if he did that, they wouldn't care. He's the vessel of Sukuna, with the higher-ups knowing that it wouldn't matter what he told them. He's simply too dangerous to be left alive. Choso would then tell Yuji that they should probably go outside to clear his head. They would exercise some more cursed spirits so Yuji wouldn't be in his head. Yuji would nod, agreeing with Choso, and they would head outside. This is when we would see Nao and Yuta with each other, moving out to go track Yuji and kill him. Standing on a bridge, Yuji would clap his hands together to draw out several cursed spirits. He would lead them down to an underpass where Choso was, killing most of them with a single piercing bloodshot, but the rest of them, Yuji would easily dispatch them, exercising the cursed spirits in one move each. Choso would tell Yuji how impressed he is, telling him that he's gotten even stronger since the Shibuya incident. The control of his cursed energy is almost perfect. Choso would hype himself up, saying that he has an amazing little brother, with Yuji simply smiling. Just then, Naoya would appear above them, saying that he doesn't see Megami, wondering how he could be so slow. Both Choso and Yuji would get up, both of them at the ready. Naoya would ask them if they planned to run. Yuji would simply stare at Naoya, knowing that his execution had probably been resumed now that Gojo was no longer around. Naoya would tell Yuji, while he doesn't care if he lives or dies, since his business is with Megami, he can't allow him to be moving around freely. He would tell Yuji that first he would break his legs, Yuji asking what Naoya wants with Megami. Naoya would tell him that he plans to kill Megami. Just then, Naoya would leap down and say that Megami is also looking for Yuji. Choso being shocked at Naoya's speed, Naoya would attempt to strike Yuji in the face, but Yuji would dodge. Yuji would then attempt to throw an attack of his own, but before Yuji can land a hit, Naoya would quickly jump away. With Yuji realizing that was probably his curse technique, Naoya would smile and tell Yuji that he's stronger and faster than he expected, also wondering who Choso was. Naoya would then ask, should he pick up the pace? But then, all three of them feel an overwhelming presence. Yuji noting that this cursed energy is creepy. he would look up and see Yuta. Yuta would calmly prepare his weapon. Yuta would unsheath his katana. Yuji would then ask who he was. Yuta would then jump down from the balcony, destroying a portion of the wall on his way down, shocking Choso. Yuta would begin slowly walking up to both of them and asking who that was with Yuji. Choso, whispering to Yuji, says that Yuta must be his executioner. Naya would raise his hand, saying that he's on Yuta's side. Naya would then mention his name, with Yuji remembering that a second-year student mentioned by Megami also goes by that name, and that he's a special grade jujutsu sorcerer. Naoya would then tell Yuta that he's Maki's cousin, and that his objective is to kill Yuji as well. He would tell Yuta that he wouldn't interfere with him, however, he wanted something in return. Choso would try to tell Yuji that they probably need to get out of there, but if it came down to it, Choso would take on Naoya, and Yuji could take on Yuta. Yuji would then ask Choso if it was okay with leaving him with Naoya, with Choso telling him that he should probably think about himself, telling Yuji that when they're both done, they should meet up at the spot they were in yesterday. Yuji would nod, acknowledging it. As Yuta would agree to Naoya's deal, he would leave Choso to him. Just then, Naoya would sprint in at Choso, with Yuta sprinting past Choso and going straight towards Yuji. Yuji would then sprint away from Yuta, but surprising Yuji, Yuta was right on his heel. As Yuji and Yuta would get away from the underpass, Yuji would sprint towards a car, seeing as he didn't want to hurt Okkotsu. As he would get to the car, he would leap over it, with Yuta quickly running to the other side with his katana ready. Just then, Yuji would grab onto the car and reverse his direction, dodging Yuta's strike. Yuta would be shocked since he thought he made contact, telling Yuji that he's surprised. He's just like Maki. Yuji would then begin to run again, running towards a nearby building. But as to Yuji's surprise, the car that he threw at Okkotsu would be thrown right over Yuji, stopping him in his tracks. He would ask Yuji if he's surprised, since he doesn't look like the strong type, adding that he's on the weaker side. This is when Yuji would recognize the enormous amount of cursed energy that Yuta has. Yuji would note that Okkotsu's cursed energy wasn't as large as his. However, they were relatively close in strength. Yuta would then ask Yuji if he was still surprised, seeing that he had an enormous amount of cursed energy. He would explain that he has more cursed energy than Gojo, but since their teacher has the 6 eyes, it allows him to reduce the energy loss when he activates a curse technique to close to 0. He would tell Yuji that Gojo is the best since he never runs out of cursed energy. After that, he would say he was done talking and sprint towards Yuji. They would clash in hand, with Yuta using his sword, Yuji simply dodging and parrying strikes, still trying not to hurt Okkotsu. Yuta would stay on the offensive with his katana, although Yuji would dodge most of the attacks. Yuta would strike again, and it would graze Yuji's cheek, cutting it open. Yuji would then decide that he needs to do something about Yuta's katana. Yuji would then back up and dash towards a large vehicle, trying to gain some room. Yuta would leap over the car as well and attack down with his katana. Yuji would then parry, countering with an attack of his own, kicking Yuta's katana out of his hand, following up with a punch to Yuta's chest. Yuta would be surprised by the power of that punch, even though he would recover quickly, reminding himself that Yuji is still Gojo's student. He would sigh and say that this fight wasn't going to be easy at all. As Yuji would move forward to strike, Rika would then appear from behind him, putting both of her hands around his head. Yuji would freeze, being shocked. Rika would ask, "What's going on here?" with Yuta telling Rika that the two of them were just playing. Yuji, not knowing what to do in the situation, would think. Yuta would tell Rika to hold on to Yuji, as he would go and grab his katana. As Yuta would go in to try to stab Yuji, Yuji would break free of Rika, kicking the katana up out of Yuta's hand again. He would then send another kick back to where Rika was, sending her backwards. As Yuji would land back on the ground, he would turn around and see Yuta right in front of him again. Yuta would then throw a punch towards Yuji, with Yuji ducking underneath the attack, sweeping at Yuta's legs. As Rika would be flying up to grab Yuta's katana, she would toss the katana straight at Yuji, with Yuji having to duck out of the way last minute. But he didn't realize Rika didn't throw that at him indiscriminately. As she would throw the blade, it would land right on the path to where Yuta was able to grab it and slash up at Yuji. Yuji would just narrowly dodge out of the way. Rika would then come up from behind Yuji, trying to throw in a punch, but Yuji would duck underneath it, dropping to the floor, using his hands as a spring to kick Rika back. As he would kick her back, Yuta would close in, right on top of Yuji. Yuta would attempt to thrust down with his sword, with Yuji rolling out of the way. He would twist his body, flipping himself back up, and rushing back at Yuta to resume hand-to-hand combat. He would then decide, since he can't get away from Yuta, he would attempt to incapacitate him, or at least knock him out. He would start with a right kick, as Yuta would block it with his left leg. Yuta would attempt to retaliate in this moment, swinging his sword. Yuji would then grab his arm. He would twist it, making Yuta drop his sword. Yuta would then throw 3 quick jabs, with Yuji being able to block the first 2, but getting hit in the face by the third. This is when Yuta would then call on Rika. She would fly in, coming at Yuji from the back, but Yuji would roll under the attack. He would then kick Rika into Yuta, causing them to crash into one another, with Rika profusely apologizing to Yuta. He would tell her it's okay. He would then tell Rika that they're doing that. He would then tell Yuji that he knew he was Gojo's student, but he was incredibly strong. This is when Rika would pull out a megaphone-looking object. Yuji, not knowing what it was, would try to hurry up and close the gap between him and Yuta, but as he would be about to close the distance, Yuta would then scream inside the megaphone, "Don't move." Just then, Yuji would be frozen in place. Yuta would then tell Rika to go hold Yuji in place, just in case. As she would go over to grab him, Yuji would walk over to Yuji, picking up his katana along the way. As he would walk up to Yuji, he would only say sorry, leaving Yuji confused. Just then, he would stab Yuji in the chest. Sukuna inside of Yuji would roll his eyes, wondering why he was holding back so much in this fight. Just then, Sukuna would begin to smile. As going back to the fight with Choso and Naoya, there wouldn't really be any changes in the fight. Choso would win, and Yuta would appear behind Choso, dragging the unconscious Yuji. Choso would try to react, but Yuta would repeatedly strike Choso in the face, knocking him to the ground. Just then, we would get a flashback. A man named Jin would be seen holding a baby. He would be talking to his father, telling him that if he wants to talk about her, he would just leave. The man Jin would be talking to would be Yuji's grandfather. He would tell Jin that he can live his life however he pleases. However, he will die if he doesn't give up on her. Jin would then tell Wasuke to not say such things in front of Yuji, since babies remember more than most believe. Wasuke would mention that Jin wanted a child with a woman named Kiori. However, before he could finish his sentence, a woman would walk into the room. She would have stitches on her forehead and a small mark the same as Yuji. She would interrupt him, addressing Wasuke as her father-in-law and asking him what he's talking about. Just then, Yuji would wake up. As he would scan the area, he would see Yuta sitting nearby, Yuji being surprised that he wasn't dead. Just then, Yuta would smile with relief. He would tell Yuji that around September, Gojo had asked him if he would watch over him. Gojo had told him to take care of the first and second years if anything were to happen to him, with Yuta telling Yuji that Gojo had specified that his primary concern should be Yuji, telling Yuji that he was supposed to be executed exactly like he was. Yuta would tell Yuji that he had to put on an act for the higher-ups so that he could be the executioner in charge and know all about the details and understand what was going on. Also telling him that in order to be approved as Yuji's executioner, he had to enter a binding vow to kill him, apologizing to Yuji for doing so. Yuji would then ask how was he still alive, with Yuta replying that the very instant his heart was stopped, he healed it with reverse curse technique. Yuta would then state that since this is the first time that his death has been staged, the higher-ups shouldn't know anything about it. Yuji would then wonder why Yuta was doing all of this for him, with Yuta replying that Yuji is important to people who are important to him. This is when Megami would suddenly walk out of the darkness and tell Yuji that they should head back to Jujutsu High, with Yuji saying that he can't return there, not yet at least. So many people died during the Shibuya incident. So many more people will die later down the line because of Kenjaku releasing all of the cursed spirits. He had a chance to stop it, and he couldn't. So many people were dead because of him. Just then, Megami would say that it's all of their fault, telling Yuji not to be selfish. He would then tell Yuji that they are Jujutsu sorcerers, not heroes fighting for justice. He understands that Yuji wants to save people, but you can't save everyone, no matter how hard you try. So he shouldn't let something like that bother him so much. He should save the people that he can, and focus on that. Yuji would then thank Megami for saying those words to him. He would say that he almost gave up again, and he's thankful to have someone like Megami around. With Megami saying, of course, that's what friends are for. Megami would then remind Yuji of what his original motive was. He would tell Yuji that he needs his strength, revealing to Yuji that Kenjaku had started a culling game for those with cursed energy, and his sister Sumiki is trapped. Reminded of his grandfather's words, he would gladly accept. Yuji would then turn to Yuta. He would ask him, since he's the closest in strength to him, in the event that Sukuna had ever taken over his body, he wanted Yuta to be the person to kill him, believing that he had the power to do so. Megami would then begin to devise a plan, telling them that they need to regroup at Jujutsu High and contact Master Tengen. They would need to find out how to unseal Gojo and figure out Kenjaku's plans for the future. He would say that the culling game is just Jujutsu terrorism on another scale, and they need answers for everything. Yuji would ask Megami if he thinks Yuki would know the answers, with Megami revealing that all of this was her idea, telling Yuji that Yuki was hiding at Jujutsu High and waiting for them while avoiding the higher-ups. Yuta would add that there's the main issue with contacting Master Tengen, saying that the tombs of the Star Corridor was closed off. He would add that Master Tengen's concealing barrier shuffles over 1,000 doors continuously, and only one of them lead to the tombs of the star. This is when Choso would come into the picture, abruptly making it known that he may know a way to get past the concealing barrier. Yuji would ask for clarification, and Choso would remind them Mahito had stole Sukuna's fingers and the death painting wounds from Jujutsu High in the past, and Choso believes that they can achieve the same thing. With their plan settled, the four sorcerers would then go to Jujutsu High. They would go to the hidden room, where they'd see Maki and Yuki sitting inside. They would then begin to explain to Yuki and Maki about their plan, with Megami asking what is their plan to try to slip past the concealing barrier. Choso would tell the group and explain that between the correct door and the tomb is the cursed warehouse where his brothers were being stored. Choso's connection with them would allow him to guide everyone into the correct door. Everyone would be okay with this plan. But then Maki would ask, who exactly is Choso? Where Yuji would speak up, telling everyone to think of Choso as his big brother. Choso being happy because this is the first time Yuji would acknowledge him as his older brother. Choso would guide the group to the correct door, confident that he knows that his brothers are asleep behind it. Yuki would tell them to move forward and go deeper so that they can locate the elevator that can descend them towards the tomb. The group would take the elevator down to the Star Corridor and walk down the pathway where Tengen had resided. Yuki would lead the way, directing them to the main shrine. However, it would seem as if they were walking in a white void, confusing everyone. Yuki would say that it's probably Tengen rejecting them, saying that they don't normally interact with the world. But Yuki thought the contact was possible, since the six eyes had been sealed. She also considers the possibility that Tengen wasn't rejecting everyone, just her. Megami would be unsure of what to do, and Yuta would tell everyone they should head back, since Sumiki doesn't have any time to waste. Suddenly, a voice would ask why they were leaving so soon, stopping the group from going. Master Tengen would have revealed themselves, saying that it was a pleasure to meet them. And I think that's where I'm going to end off part 5. This is the after production of part 5, and I just want to say I greatly appreciate all of you. We're already at 550 subscribers. You guys are like amazing, and I couldn't imagine getting this far. Again, like, thank you. Really, thank you. Tomorrow, also, I will be uploading the What If Yuji Was Like Garo. And like I said in the one post, once I finish the What If Yuji Was Like Yoriichi, I'll be doing the What If Yuji Had One For All. What if? So, I thank all of you for your support. And I see all of you guys' comments as well. I will take in as many ideas as I can. I think for right now, I will stick to doing JJK. It might branch out to other anime that I know, but for other anime, I think I do have to do research. But yeah, thank you all for listening. And yeah, peace.